So, warm welcome to the webinar on digitally savvy boards leading in the age of AI. We're running it also together with Scandinavian Executive Institute, which I can see that Sten is here joining. And we have a fabulous event for you. We will have 2 research being shared, and then we will have a panel with the presenters and with 2 chairs and NEDs to discuss this. Then we are going on from there. I will introduce everybody in a short while as they are presenting. We'll start out with the 2 research topics, then we have the panel, we will have a poll, and then we will go into breakout rooms to discuss how we're using this or working with it. And after that, we're going to bring you back, listen to your feedback, and have comments again from our presenters and our panelists. So you will be muted, or we will help mute you during the first part. We will remove all AI recorders, and you are open to have a lot of discussions in the little chat box, of course. So we will work with that. The first part of the webinar is being recorded. Of course, nothing in the breakout rooms and not for the rest. Any technical issues, pray to God or send an email as requested. So, Boards Impact Forum is the Nordic chapter of the Climate Governance Initiative with a bit broader focus, focused very much on sustainability, where we also include AI and the impact of AI. We work along with the World Economic Forum, and we use their principles, so we will come back to that. We couldn't have done this without the support of a lot of fantastic board networks, both in the Nordics, and we have a lot of colleagues also internationally joining us. For this webinar is probably a bit more than 30% international. We usually are quite international. And we think that adds an additional contribution to it. So the other thing we just wanted to say is these are the 8 principles for World Economic Forum. They were created from the beginning for climate governance. We find that they are very relatable to all new topics for a board. And the key thing here is that it's 3 that is really about the board itself. Then it's the core areas around what is really material and how do we make it into the strategy. And then it's about how do we motivate, how do we report, and how do we collaborate with stakeholders. Today, we are going to talk about the board's role and the integration. I am delighted to yet again have the opportunity to collaborate with Stephanie from MIT. And I'm going to also let you introduce yourself a bit. Normally you would be in Boston, but today you're in California, exploring all of the interesting things happening there. You are the academic director of something called MIT CISR, which is a fantastic community which you do collaborative research together with companies. And we have collaborated both when you started with your digital business model, but now we're also in parallel researching boards and digital savviness together. So Stephanie also teaches on board programs, both individual, private setups, and also on the MIT's board program. We're delighted to have you here, Stephanie, and thank you for stepping up early as well. From California, over to you.
Thank you so much. Now, are you running my show or am I running my show?
You can do whatever you do. You want to run it?
I was going to run it and then we can, yes. Then I'll turn it back to you.
that we
Okay,
can.
hello everybody, and I am delighted to be here. I'm out in California. We came out because my colleague Peter Weil and I were running a board program for a large bank. And so I got to do some really fun stuff while we were out here, like visiting all of the big tech companies. I have to tell you that AI was just completely, uh, that was the subject, I would say du jour, but really I think it's going to be a subject for the next many years. And trying to figure out what the board's role is it was really important work to do, and really interesting to see what companies were doing. I'm going to start off by talking about our research on boards and digital savvy. I do most of my research is around digital business models, digital transformation. And starting back in 2018 or so, we started thinking about what was, could we measure the digital savviness of boards? And so this became a stream of research. It's actually quite different from my other research. We do a lot of survey research and a lot of interviews and case studies. That's a lot harder to do when you're doing boards, because their board members are often talking about sensitive subjects. And so while the interviews are fantastic, you have to be really careful about how you describe the work that they are telling us about, because it's really relevant to particular boards, and the need for confidentiality is important. So the way that we started doing this research was thinking about how do we do, how do you tell the digital savviness? And we thought, well, maybe what we can do is look at board director bios. And so that has been the method that we have done here, again, using machine learning. So this was really our first foray into AI of some form. So I'm going to jump right in. I know I have 15 minutes and want to set this up so that then we can get to the next topic, and then to some meaty conversation. This is our research center, kind of on a page. And so these are the companies that are part of our consortium. About 70, 75 companies. We do about 8 research projects a year. This year, we're going to be doing projects. Everything has some AI as part of it. I will say that in 2023, kind of the world exploded with ChatGPT and large language models. And we really had to change the way we had to really start incorporating AI into every project that we do. We do workshops with companies. We do research briefings every month. And if you're at all interested in receiving the research briefings, you can go to CISR.mit.edu, sign up, and you will get the research briefings. So when we started this research, we thought, well, what does it mean to be digitally savvy? And early on, we had to go talk to board members and say, no, it does not mean that you use your phone well. That's not what we mean by digital savviness. And so what we were trying to think about was digital savviness at the company, at the enterprise level. And so when we think about digital savvy, we think about 4 different things. The first is around insight, around how digital affects company success. Do you know where digital is going to fit into what your company is doing, what your enterprise is doing, and why you need it to be successful in the next, say, 10, 20, 30 years? The second is an understanding, enterprise level understanding of technology. And so a lot of the research, a lot of the work is around, digital platforms, AI, big data, Internet of Things, mobile and digital processes. And so these are the kinds of enterprise level technologies that you're going to need as a company to really succeed in the digital economy. And you need to be thinking about things like partnering and how do you take care of cyber and risk and compliance. The third is around when do you commit, when do you experiment, when do you commit, and when do you partner, and how do you do this at scale? Scale is really important. You're not going to be just doing any of these technologies at the individual level. It's really got to be at the enterprise level. And then finally, and what I think might be the most important is, do you have the ability to balance your business model risk and your project risk? Any kind of initiative that you do is going to have some kind of risk at the project level, but you also have to be thinking about, when is it time to cannibalize your business? When is it time to think about your new business model? So taking that, we started to think about, what does it mean for a board to be digitally savvy? And the way that we did this was we took all of the boards that were listed in the United States with over $1 billion in revenue. And because of reporting requirements, you can get all of those bios. And we got all of the bios of those boards. And we did a coding exercise, and it took many rounds of coding to come up with the words that we were using, but we had words around the technologies of, say, 2018. So uh, technologies around digital, around social media, things like that. And um, after several rounds of coding and trying things out, we then created a natural language processing model, and we coded each of the directors' bios in terms of digital savviness. Now, I have to say, it was not it it wasn't particularly stringent. You had to have one marker of digital savviness, and that marked you as digitally savvy. And then we took all of the directors and put them back into boards. And what we found is that three digitally savvy directors were required to make a difference. And the companies with digitally savvy boards had higher revenue growth, higher ROA, and higher market cap growth. And what we found was that those digitally savvy directors, they changed the risk conversation that were happening in boards, that they were not just focusing on the project risk, but also at that business model risk. So that was 2019. 5 years later, we thought, so what's happening with large language models, with AI, with all of this, everything that's happening in technology? And so here is what we found in 2019. 24% of the boards were digitally savvy. What we were seeing is focus on digital transformation, cyber tech committees, IT reliability. And then we were finding that it was primarily CIOs who were presenting to the board. Eric asked, what is the median numbers on a board? The boards that we were looking at typically had between 6 and 14 directors. I don't know the median number, but I'm going to guess that it was probably around 10. And those three directors, Eric, were not just digitally savvy. They typically were kind of T-shaped with deep expertise in digital, but then other pieces of other types of capabilities that they were bringing. So in 2024, we took the same words, those 275 words, and we took all of the directors, and what we found was that 72% of boards were now digitally savvy, and there were no performance premiums. We were also finding through our interviews that digital transformation was slowing, that boards were really being I don't know that bogged down is the right word, but there were increasing cyber and regulatory initiatives that they had to deal with. Now they were talking about selling digital products. And we were seeing through the interviews we were doing with board members that the number of people that were presenting to the boards it was really expanding. It was really business unit heads, CTOs, CDOs. So we thought, well, let's raise the bar. AI is what everybody's talking about. So we went through, we raised the bar in terms of the words. We actually got a whole new set of words. And we ended up with it's a stemming process that we used, and you end up with 162 words. And the words that we were using for digital savvy were things around AI, large language models, agentic AI, climate tech, reg tech, legal tech, platforms. And when we did that, we saw that once again, you really decrease the number of digitally savvy boards. 26% were digitally savvy. We saw, again, a performance premium. And we were seeing a difference also. The whole board was responsible. Again, the interviews that we were doing were showing, were really pointing out the need for boards to grapple with AI. And especially it's not just machine companies have been doing machine learning forever. It's really around generative AI and then kind of this multimodal AI and AI agents. The next thing that we did was say, well, what are the impacts of tech committees? And I must say, this was much messier than the machine learning. So what I did was we took the firms that we had, the 2,788 firms, and I used the CIK code members for that. I pulled down all of the committees from the BoardX database, and we were able to get committee data from 906 of the 2,788 firms. And then it was a mess. The average number of committees, you won't be surprised, is four. It's not very large because four, three committees are required: nominating in government, governance, compensation, and audit. And then if you're in financial services, you need risk. But what was crazy was there were more than 475 distinct committee names. I Every board seemed to name the committee differently. And so at that point, it's like, well, we're going to have to code them. And so we coded them into 16 topic areas. And so there's still more research to be done. One of the things that what we found out of this analysis is that digitally and AI savvy boards were statistically more likely to have a committee either focused on cybersecurity, talent, or technology. And so technology committees seem to play a role. It's something that we're looking at over time. One question that we have is, do you need a technology committee all the time? Do you need a technology committee when there's this new technology and you really have to get a handle on it? And then then does technology become the responsibility of the entire board? And what we found was that the technology committee kind of fit in. We've identified key board roles for digital. Ours we use our defense around cyber, data privacy, outages and regulation, oversight, which is around IT, digital and AI projects, and strategy. And where we see technology committees fitting in is around strategy and defense, because a lot of the work around defense is going to involve some kind of technology. One of the things that we see in terms of these roles is that companies that were effective, now I just did an average, companies that were in the top quartile of effectiveness on these roles were actually better on both net margin and on revenue growth. And I think Lisolate and Fernanda, we can share these slides, can't we? Okay, so you can have access to the slides. So here are our lessons learned, and then I'm going to turn it over. One is you need to educate the board. I think that AI and the need to have to really have data literacy, the need for companies to have the right kind of data infrastructure, the need also for a more modern infrastructure. Boards have to know about these technology issues. Um, you know, one thing to think about that digital and AI strategies are business strategies. Do you need a tech committee to help with that translation along the way? Or do you have board members that are technologically, that are digital and AI savvy enough that you don't need a tech committee? One of the things that came up in the interviews that we're doing, and I wonder if we'll talk about it, is that you need to make time for and prioritize strategic and technology topics. Boards are pinched for time, and how you get everything done. It's hard. Your agendas are really, really important. Um, this is your board discussions are a place to showcase your digital talent, and you need to focus on the future. And so this research really shows that that how companies are going to succeed is really going to be, it's going to rest on how well they're going to deal with technology. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Lisa Latte.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I think it's so interesting, and just supporting what you said earlier, you actually produce a lot of really interesting research. So either people can actually go to your newsletters and get that, but they can also try to push their companies to be part of your research groups and meet with other companies that's trying. So you have a lot of the leading companies in your group, which is very interesting. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Stephanie. We will come back to you. Fernanda.
Yes, exciting. Do you want me to share? Maybe would that be
Yeah.
easier?
Yeah.
Let me just share my screen then. And here we go. Hope you see my slides now. Super,
Yes.
very
Yeah.
good. I'm just going to make them big. So this is really exciting because this presentation is really based on the research that we have started in 2018. It was started by Liselott Engstam, here with us today also, Robin Tegland, professor in Chalmers now, and myself. So at the time with a funding from Vinnova. And we published it the first time in 2020, and we thought that was it. But here we are, really, really needing to update it. And the reason why I'm so happy doing this presentation is because you are all very, very special. This is the first presentation that we do about the research after we send it to publish. So we just send the manuscript. And this is the first presentation, so it's very special for us. So what we have done is very much based in our experience here in Boards Impact Forum, a lot of literature review, surveys, different interviews, and our own experiences working in boards. We have updated this research, and my ambition for today is that I will guide you through kind of the overall structure of this research and introduce you to the framework that we have created. So the framework lies around this house. And what I will do in this session is that I will try to show you, piece by piece, this different elements of this house. Now, this framework really has three main findings. One of them is that the boards need to set the foundation so that they can really strive within AI. And what we mean by foundation, we are looking into the board's own role. Boards also need to have a good balance between guidance and supervision. We're going to look into this, but it's very much around not just monitoring what is happening, but supporting the development of the capabilities in the organization. And boards need to lead the strategic ambition. Picking up also on what Stephanie, the last point that Stephanie made around the future. So very much, where do we want to go? What's our ambition? What is our strategy? So very much also looking onto what's coming next. So if we then jump here into the first finding, it really has to do about the board's accountability, the role, the competence, the structure. So very much around, instead of just starting, looking immediately into the organization, that the boards have the possibility of taking a step back and looking at themselves. What are we comfortable? How much? And very much building on what Stephanie just presented. How tech savvy are we? How much are we comfortable with these topics? So very much related to the competence, very much related to the structure, like Stephanie was also pointing out. Do we have the right type of committees? For how long, etc. So this is the first finding. Okay, before we start jumping into the organization, jumping into let's try to implement this, let's look at ourselves. The second finding, it's very much this balance between guiding the AI operational capability and supervising the governance capabilities. So this finding is actually very much based also on the earlier research that we published in 2020. Although, of course, we had to update. There's very exciting developments in each one of these areas. So just to look a little bit into each one, with each one of them separately. When we are talking about the operational capabilities, what do we mean by the board guidance of these capabilities? We have divided in 3 sections: data strategy and governance, AI-driven innovation, and business ecosystems for value creation. So very much looking into your data, look into the data that is available, the data that you want to get, the data that you might want to artificially, synthetically create, and how do you govern that data. All these have very important implications into how you can actually use the data, which takes us to the value creation aspect. How can we use this data in order to generate value to the organization? So AI-driven innovation. And if we really try to understand at these ingredients in separate, we are looking into the data, we're looking into the innovation. Of course, the natural next step is the ecosystem. So when we are talking about AI, it's not possible that we have all the ingredients to make it work. We need to partner up. We need to work with others. Some data, it might be in your customers. Some data is within your suppliers. Some data is even within your competitors. So how can you collaborate? What are the right platforms in order to also build this innovation? And one of the examples that we bring up in the book is the example of Philips, which we think it's very interesting, kind of really moving from the consumer electronics to the health tech, and really making data their primary asset. So very much looking into not just the medical devices, but how to use data, govern that data, create innovation from that data, and even also building an ecosystem. So Philips already have had their AI principles published in 2020. I don't want to kind of stress you out, like you should have done this already and you haven't, you know, you just need to do it. But it's interesting to also put it in context, right? This has their journey has been going on for some time. They have really interesting platform, this health suite that really unifies the imaging, the EMR, all the data. So one of the issues that we have looking into EMR is that there are many different systems. for patients to have access, for the medical doctors to have access, for the staff, the medical staff to have access. These are many different platforms. So really the fact that you can operate this data across many different platforms and different stakeholders. And they have also launched the TASY EMR AI assistant, which is very exciting. So TASY is their software for managing EMR, and they have it for quite some time. They're quite big in Latin America, 1,800 hospitals that are using TASY. And now they've really stepped up their game by creating a virtual assistant to work within this flow of the imaging. Really useful being Portuguese in this context, watching a lot of YouTube videos in Brazilian and Portuguese from Brazil to understand how they did it. But it's really interesting to see how, step by step, slowly but surely, they have really been doing this journey. Now, if we look into the other side of this column, we're really looking into the supervision of the governance capabilities. Then we maybe into what is a bit more traditional, more common way of boards talking about AI, we think, within this risk aspect, ethics, data regulation, the cybersecurity, and also the ecosystem compliance. So if we kind of go through each one, again, when we're talking about data, we're talking about the ethical use, we're talking about bias, we're talking about privacy. When we're talking about cybersecurity, how to build that resilience in the organization, right? It's not so much like someone was saying, it's not so much being hacked or not, but how do you react when that happens? And again, if you cannot do AI alone, if you need to do it in an ecosystem, then you're governing not only your organization, but you need to have in place the system, the process to, in a way, also govern the others. As in, these are entry points into your organization through the ecosystem. And there's a big part of reputation, for example, that is associated with being in a platform. So as an example here, I think it's very interesting the work that Marsh has been doing. They are very much an ecosystem, right? I mean, they need to work with many different ports and many different customers and different suppliers, etc. So there's a very high risk of regulatory exposure across many different jurisdictions. So it's very much the risk of a weakened ecosystem and a very high liability because of this exposure. So it's interesting what they have been doing in terms of guaranteeing security status in order to give access to the partners to their platforms, and also the kind of innovations they have been building, for example, with their partnership with Altana AI, looking into end-to-end supply chain risks, flagging violations automatically, and so on. So also making this part of the ecosystem compliance as part of the possibilities to generate new value, to generate opportunities for the business. And now what we created in our research is this matrix that we kind of put together these two elements of the balancing act between really developing operational capabilities and supervising them. So we have this framework, and it has many different levels, from none, planned or piloting, operation, advanced, differentiating, and leading. And what we have is that we have a list of questions also to help the board have a discussion around, okay, where are we in terms of supervising? Where are we in terms of guiding the development of these capabilities, so that we can start having an alignment at board level about where we are, and also, of course, where we want to go. Let's have the discussion, again, making the point that we, going back to Stephanie's presentation about the future, right? The strategic point, where we are, but where should we be in 2 and 3 years? a really interesting point that we saw here, and this is, I think, food for thought. Since we first published this in 2020, we said that organizations were in a certain moment, let's say that first X there. And it has been very hard for organizations to advance because technology has also been advancing, right? So it means that somehow you really need to run fast just to catch up. And this is an interesting insight. So again, it's important to know where we are, where we want to go, and have that vision, because just following what others are doing is really not enough. And this really takes us to the next level of the framework that we have also developed now, which is this leading the strategic ambition to move forward. So here we're talking about strategy, leadership, talent, workforce transformation, sustainability, impact. And I don't want to go very much into detail to all of these, but I can tell you, just as a bit of an overview, when we are talking about strategy, we're really talking about rethinking the business model. Again, going back also to Stephanie's point about, when is it time to cannibalize yourself, when it's time to make that strategic move. Scenario planning, working with horizons, very much thinking, and you that know my work here at Boards Impact Forum, I'm a very big fan of scenario planning. So very much understanding where we are, where we want to go, and how the world around us moves. So very much about dynamic adaptation and experimenting, learning, knowing that this is an iterative process of strategy. In terms of leadership, very much from command to adaptive leadership. We need to be fast, to adapt, to move forward, be data-driven, but also very much human-centered. And I think that this is a very interesting aspect and a very interesting challenge when it comes to leadership, because, it's really about, I was listening to this some time ago, and I really liked it, this idea that with AI, there is the risk of being garbage in, but instead of garbage in, garbage out, it's garbage in, gospel out. As in, there are biases. It is difficult to understand where this data is coming from. So we need to have this human-centered aspect to it, that we really understand and put things in perspective. Very much based in ethics and purpose also, of course. And we have huge challenges when it comes to talent and the workforce. It's really about future-proofing the workforce, making sure that we have a culture of innovation, of collaboration, and new designs of processes. So we make sure that we include this human aspect of it, which will lead to a very big transformation. And that we need to monitor, we need to assess, we need to understand, put it in an ecosystem context, and finally, sustainability. So a big difference from the previous research to this one is that we have a whole chapter now also looking into this intersection of AI and sustainability. So very much AI poses challenges when it comes to just running in terms of energy consumption, etc. But what are also the opportunities of using AI in order to understand where we can really have a very big impact when it comes to sustainability, not just your environment, but again, labor, social, etc. So how can we make this work? And one point that we make in the book that I think is really relevant to point out here also is around, with AI, you have a specific data. If you are good at sustainability, you have your own stakeholders, your own supply chain. If you add these two, it's the possibility of creating strategic moats around organizations. It's huge. So you can really use sustainability together with AI to craft very, very unique market positions and value propositions. And this is what I wanted to say. I think finishing up with go sustainability, go AI. Woohoo! It's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we can stay with your presentation, and you can just go back to our next two people that we also will introduce. and that is Bertil. And Bertil is both a chair and a NED, and he has a long background from international companies in all varieties of roles in the top executive. He now sits on a number of both listed and private companies, and he chairs some of them. And he's also fortunate enough to sit on some of the audit committees that we now know is the ones that's drowning on all of the new topics. Warm welcome, Bertil. Charlotta is also fantastic background knowledge. She's a COO of a strategy game developer. But she also sits on 3 boards, mostly in financial services, private equity, fintech, and you will be able to hold us knowledgeable and accountable for actually knowing about the holes that we have between management and the boards. Warm welcome also to you, Charlotta.
Thank you.
So I wanted to actually ask you, not on specific boards, but when do you feel that your board, what happened that made your board understand that they needed to be a bit more knowledgeable about AI, and how did that come about? So Bertil, do you want to start?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. I think it's a fantastic thing we're in right now, and maybe that sort of technology inflection point was actually the launching of ChatGPT-4 to the public, because suddenly you could see that it was sort of awareness that started it. So I think this is definitely the starting point, that you're bringing this from regular technology. I sit on boards where the technology is part of their business, being on top of it. And of course, AI, the first time we brought it up, they said, AI, yeah, of course we use it. But, we need to define what is generative AI. And the whole ChatGPT sort of made the boards ask more questions, or I guess anyone that used it. So I think that was a trigger point. And then, of course, also one board I sit in, which is public knowledge, we had a cyber attack, which really brought us right into these questions about what are, how do we actually defend it? How AI savvy are we in the company, and what gaps do we have? So that brought technology, maybe from a more defensive point of view. So I like very much this guiding and supervision part, because we try to keep that. But I think these are the starting point. And maybe I can mention, it's different in different businesses, but following the analysts, I mean, having a finger out on the people that review your companies you're sitting in and reading the reports, because in one of them, actually, we had a very negative report because I thought this company will lose out on AI, which was probably wrong. But there you see that this is going to be affecting value. I mean, there you also feel that this is getting bigger. So I think that was
Right.
ways.
Thank you so much, Bertil. Charlotta, when did you feel that and you're sitting also on investment type of companies, so when do you feel that your company's boards started to get a perspective?
So it wasn't maybe a specific moment, as you say, and also similar to what Bertil mentioned, the Industrifonden, the Swedish industry fund, where we do a lot of investment in high-tech companies. Sort of, you can get the feeling that just because you invest in high-tech companies, sort of you are almost there. The same sort of when you build a platform. Nordnet is a new platform for in the fintech area, and sort of the constant developing, etc. It's so easy to think that you're already there because you have all these struggles every day, you sort of work with it. But I would say that when you sort of prove yourself to be there is when you have sort of reshaped your your purpose and your business model according to the new theme. So I think it's more wakening up than a clear moment, because of course everyone is, as Fernanda mentioned, sort of trying to just sort of catch up. But I think the realizing that is maybe not the best way. It's to rethink things. That's the thing.
And what would you say that the biggest blind spots are? What are we missing as boards? Do you want to start on this one, Charlotte, and then I'll come to the rest of you?
So I think we have underestimated the need of technical savviness or digital AI savviness. So I think I think people realize today, but in the past I think that has been a little bit sort of not as long as you understand the business model. We talked about customer and market a lot. So I think that's something that is catching up with us, because I think that will steer a lot of what we can do and not do. So as you and I have spoken in the past, sort of, I think it's important that the board set the risk level you want to go with the company. And it's, you can say high or low, but taking risk in one area where you maybe want to experiment with AI and having something being attacked with a cyber attack in another area is a totally different risk, of course. So I think that the board need also to be more specific when we talk about risk. It's not only high and low. It's in these areas we can allow risk, because this would be safe for us to experiment on the internal processes, etc. And we have sort of a process to follow up on where things might go wrong. And in other areas, we might be super strict. But I think that is where management can get a lot of help from the board, actually.
Right. And what do you feel that the blind spots are, Bertil?
Well, I think it is actually just consider it a technology shift and not the real, disruptor. So you would have the first meeting and say, yeah, we use AI, no problem, we know that, and we use it all the time. So what's the next subject? And you want to go deeper and say, how do we really use it in the strategy and towards the customer and so on. So I think underestimation is and sort of just saying that we are already in control of it, so to speak.
Right. And Stephanie, I'll ask you now both to comment on this kind of blind spot thing, but also what do you see in terms of training and education? Do you think boards are quick enough? Are we flexible enough to actually get ourselves educated? What do you see?
Well, I think I'm not sure that anybody is quick enough, actually. Right now, I will have to say that I'm getting requests to do talks on agentic AI, and it's like, we're right in the middle of researching it. I can't research fast enough. And so one of the things that we're seeing with boards, especially, and companies though, is that a couple of the tech companies they're proposing a vision that I think that companies have not, trying to get their head around. And so how do you use, what companies have to do is move from those, we have a 4-stage enterprise AI maturity model where the first is around educating and setting up guidelines, and then the second is use cases, and then the third is embedding AI into your ways of working. And you really need to figure out, how do you get from stage 2 to stage 3? And that is, I think, pretty hard for a lot of companies, because that is changing their business model. It's changing what they do. All of a sudden, they realize they have to partner with some people because they don't have everything. And then they look back and say, the data's not right. And so I would say, in terms of blind spot, it's really it's it's almost like you need to split some things off and say some are going to go and deal with the speed. It's just so fast. And then you're
Yeah.
going to have some others that are going to say, okay, what are the base, what's the foundation that we have to put in? What's the, the governance that we have to put in? And also, I mean, I don't think anybody has figured out how you're going to go and deal with the compliance and the risk. The agentic stuff has got fascinating. I think it's going to change business models. And I think that how you move so that it's not just a bolt on, but it's really part of your processes. It's going to fundamentally, I think one of the other pieces too that is a blind spot is that companies are looking at, oh, AI is just going to augment what we do and we're going to do it better. And they're missing an opportunity to really fundamentally transform themselves. So, but I also look at that from a researcher, which is how do we fundamentally change research because it's going so fast. Um, I am changing slides every 2 weeks.
Yeah. So let's see if we can get everybody to give a bit of a perspective. Where are you? So we have 3 questions for you, where you go from fully agree to fully disagree. So first, our board has the competence and structure in place to sufficiently guide and supervise the transformation. The second one goes to this guiding the capability. So our board has a core strength in actually guiding the capability. And number 3, our board has a core strength in supervising. So it would be really interesting to see if we can ask everybody to respond to these topics. And we'll get you in the panel to have a bit of a first comment on it. So we'll wait for a couple of more minutes or seconds.
Can I comment on one thing meanwhile we're waiting?
Yes.
So when we talk about blind spots, I think sometimes people focus a little bit too much on the generative AI, sort of a little bit in the waiting mode, like a deer on the motorway looking into the big shiny lamps coming towards you. Instead of utilizing the power of the more narrow AI models that already existed for many years. So instead of sort of in panic waiting for the big moment, really utilizing quite a lot of power that's there. And I think that's a little bit of a underestimated area where there is so many things that can be done already today. You don't need to optimize with agents. There is so many other areas. Cybersecurity is one area, but there are so many other areas you can do so many things with the technology that exists already today. Of course, there is a risk that new versions of AI models coming can, of course, a little bit override things, but it's not that we are in a waiting mode.
So I'm going to end the poll now, and here is the results. So if I start with asking Bertil to react to the first one, our overall competence.
Well, I think I'm not surprised there were none fully agree. And my thinking obviously is different. I'm sitting on some boards where AI is really the thing they work with. But if you take in general, I think you should have come so that I think we have the competence and structures because it's really change. And of course, you have to, a lot of people have the experience of, for example, internet coming in the year 2000.
Right.
But then the core strength in guiding, if you want to go to that I'm more unsure about because it's difficult to do from the board. You have to use the tools you have. We can come back to that, but so I was more of a neutral there.
Right.
And the third point, from my point of view, it was I could agree also, the supervision part. So
right. And Fernanda, obviously, I need to have you comment on the last 2. What about the balance between guiding and supervising?
I just wanted to also pick up here on what Bertil was commenting. I think that it's very much around no one answered fully agree, and a lot of them disagree, but it's very much around how to say this in a nice way. You know, a lot of board directors were already there, for example, in the dot-com bubble. And I think that we need to have a certain degree of humbleness to accept how different this is. And therefore, board directors got to be board directors because they have an amazing track record. And now we have to have a certain humbleness to say, wait a second, this is actually very different from what I've seen before. And yes, I can do this supervision part, but yes, I also need to guide this development, and therefore I myself, I also need to develop myself. So
Right.
it's very much there that I think personally is a big challenge.
Right.
Can I also add in?
Sure.
So in 2000, I was the National Science Foundation in the U.S. Gave a very big grant to MIT, and I was the project manager. And this was the big grant, $5 million, 5 years, to study what will the internet mean for large companies. So I kind of wonder if we're in that same kind of space right now where there's a future, people are dreaming, they're thinking about the capabilities. But if you think about when it really is going to, how long it's going to take to really make a difference. I mean, think about what was happening in 2000. We had very static websites where you maybe had some products on there. It really wasn't until the middle 2015, 2000, where you really start to see a big difference. And so if you think about this stage right now, it could be 10 years before we really see a big difference. And so I think there's going to be big change. I don't think that we know exactly what it's going to be, but it may take a little bit of time to get there.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that, everybody. Now we are going to get ourselves into the breakout rooms. And this is what we will discuss. So try to identify a chair to lead, a vice chair to kind of take a bit of notes. You can comment back. How is your board currently engaging with the AI topics? What seemed to have worked well, and what are you still challenged with? So it'd be really interesting, and now I can see that we have a bit of shift in how many people we have, so I will have to move a couple of people.
And I have also put these questions in the chat so that everyone has them available when they go into the breakout rooms.
Right. So you will be, we put you into 2 breakout rooms right now and see how that will work. We'll ask you to be really quick and just share, build on each other. And then we'll come back and continue the discussion in a group, as a group. Okay? Thank you so much for sharing that. I just want Fernanda to close us up, and then if somebody wants to stay, we can have a couple of more minutes. Fernanda.
Super. Thank you so much, everyone. So just a quick reminder, on the 26th of June, we have another webinar, very exciting, really looking into how to govern in turbulent times. Your screen is not sharing, Liselott, just sharing half of the screen. But it's okay. On the other, now it is. And we have now the early bird for our own training here from Boards Impact Forum. We have been talking quite a lot about boards training on AI. So until the 17th of August is the early bird, and it's going to start in September this year. So check it out. We have also just launched the dates for our sustainability program. So the AI program is very much based on the research that I was presenting today. And the sustainability program is actually officially certified by the Climate Governance Initiative. So we are the only program in the Nordics, one of the few in the world, to be certified by them, which we are very, very proud of, about.
Right, and I just want Stephanie to give a chance to also, because you also provide a board training from MIT. Do you want to say something about that before?
I'm not sure when the next one is. We have a digitally board savvy training. I believe that the next one is in September, and then we have one in Australia in March. And so I don't have the dates, but if you're interested, you can reach out to me and I can get them for you.
Thank you for sharing
Super.
that.
Super. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Very big thank you to our partner in this session, the Scandinavian Executive Institute. A special thank you, of course, to all the speakers, to you, Stephanie, to Bertil, to Charlotta, and to all of you for being here and really sharing your experiences. Thank you so much for being here. And